Good morning, everybody. We are trying for the second time to see if we can get on live with Sascha. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Luckock. I'm the impact strategist and business coach for social entrepreneurs and ethical business owners, helping you to measure and communicate your social and environmental impact better, because I truly believe that this is one of the best ways to connect with your ideal clients, your customers, and actually get them engaged and involved and buying from you. And many social entrepreneurs in my experience don't actually communicate very well what their big vision is, why they do what they do, or their impact. And so I help them do that because I think it's one of the best ways to attract more customers. So today we are inviting Sascha into the live every Wednesday for the next 8 weeks. We are going to have a live guest expert around 10:30 on a Wednesday, coming in to share some of their expertise. It won't always necessarily be about social impact businesses or branding or websites or tech or things like that. There's going to be a whole variety of speakers on all sorts of different things, so watch out for that. And hopefully we will be able to, so Sascha, you should be able to request now. So I've given you the opportunity to be a guest on the broadcast, but for some reason I still can't invite you. So it might be to do with your security settings, so you might have to request. So at the bottom of your screen, you should have the ability to request to join the live. And if not, we'll have to do a pre-recorded one, and I'll have to share it later on. I'll have to go over to Zoom. For some reason, Facebook makes it really easy with some people and really, really difficult with other people. And I haven't quite figured out what the magic secret is. Because generally, for those of you that have done joint Facebook Lives before will know, oh, here we go. Sometimes it just has a bit of... So you should be able to come in very soon. Who doesn't love technology? So Sascha's connecting in now. Hey, Sascha, finally.
Wow, it's working.
It's never easy.
It's crazy.
Technology is great for many things, but can sometimes cause some headaches.
So you can use it only on your mobile as well?
Yes. Yes, it has to be a mobile device. And I'm not sure why, but yeah, it has to be a mobile device.
That's great. But I'm happy we made it finally.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you're able to join us, especially for the first one. It's great to have you here. We only connected, a couple of weeks ago, had a telephone conversation, learned about each other's businesses. So I'm really pleased that you were interested in joining me live as one of the first guest experts. So thank you very much for giving your time.
Thanks for having me.
No, you're welcome. Let's get started by you just sharing a little bit about your background and what you do now, and then I'll ask you some more specific questions about branding, which is really your expertise.
Okay, perfect. So my background is in media design. I studied philosophy and media design in Germany. And while I was studying, I started a small design agency with a couple of friends. And then when we finished, we split up the agency, and I had a base of clients to start my digital nomad life for the next couple of years, actually more than 10 years, I think. And while I was traveling, my focus was always to be involved in humanitarian work, because I always wanted to not only focus on making money, but also doing some good. So I never wanted to go into a normal advertising agency or branding agency. And I was trying to do that the ways that were possible for me. So the first thing I did after my studies, I went to Iran and I worked half a year in an NGO there, and did fundraising for a cancer treatment hospital that they treat children suffering from cancer for free. And then I went on traveling Southeast Asia and Asia, finally ending up in Peru and doing some things there, and always splitting up my time between working as a digital nomad freelancer and doing humanitarian projects on the side. So that's how I got into this whole humanitarian field. And then at some point, actually quite recently, I figured that social enterprises are the perfect way to connect doing something good and also making money, not being reliant on donations, fundraising, crowdfunding, all these things. So you can generate your own revenue to support your causes. So, and I got really passionate about it. And since also in the last couple of years, my focus has moved more towards branding. It felt natural to combine the two. And here we are.
Yeah, no, definitely. So now you're helping different social enterprise, different social impact businesses, specifically with their branding
E-
and sort of everything that goes with that.
Exactly. Yep, that's true.
So I know that there's a lot of, certainly when I speak to clients or people in my Facebook group or online, there's often quite a lot of misconceptions about branding.
Hmm.
And often people think branding's just as simple as kind of designing a logo, choosing your fonts, choosing your colours. Um, I know a little bit about branding, and I know it's a lot more than just that. Like it's actually all your communications and the way that you represent your business through all your external communications and any communications you have really with anybody about your business. Tell us a little bit more about what branding really means to you and what you see are often the misconceptions about it as well.
Okay, so I think the easiest way I would explain branding is really of the art of directing the way people think and feel about what you do. I
Mm-hmm.
think that really brings it down to one sentence. Um, and I think you touched on the most common misconception about branding, that is more about the visual identity, more about what you actually see. But my perspective on branding is a much broader one, or a much deeper one, where it has very much to do with basically uncovering your identity, both as a person, as an entrepreneur, and as a company, and then finally as a brand, combining all of these things together.
Yeah, no, brilliant. I love that. And I think it's really important for people to recognize when they're thinking about their brand, it's not just that visual identity, but like you said, it's all of those communications. So, what are the key things if people are just starting out in their business or just looking at kind of rebranding or like kind of refocusing on what their brand identity is? What would be the top things for you to encourage people to think about?
Um, well, so I think something very important is to actually realize that you cannot not brand.
Mm-hmm.
So whether you are consciously putting any effort into pursuing any type of branding, whether it's just looking at the design or thinking about brand strategy, um, or you're unconsciously not like you're not doing anything, you are still branding. So
Yeah.
because as a business you have to do with customers, and that goes with this deeper understanding of branding. So whenever you have to do with customers, selling them your product or your service, then you start building some form of reputation, and so
Mm-hmm.
people start to think and feel about you in a certain way. And if you didn't put any conscious effort into how you want that to happen, then it's just going to happen. So you
Yeah.
may be lucky, and like you're a great guy and you have a great product and whatever, and people are going to love you and everything is perfect, but you may not be. So it's up to chance basically. So branding means that you actually put a conscious effort into if you want to say so, into uncovering your own identity, and then
Mm-hmm.
using it in the most strategic way possible, so that your business profits from it, and with your business, your impact. Yeah, so that's the number one key thing, I think, to realize that no matter what you do, even if you don't want to think about branding, if you think it's total nonsense, you're still branding. I mean, then you're being branded basically. You're
Yeah.
giving it to your customers so that they put a label on you, whether you like it or not. And then the second thing, uh, and that's something specific to social impact businesses, and a lot of people who come from the nonprofit world, is that they don't really like to manipulate people, and
Mm-hmm.
which is of course great, and I'm completely on their side. So, but they think that any type of advertising, any type of marketing, any type of branding has to do with manipulating people. Um, and it's important to realize that it's not so much about manipulation, but it's about clarity. It's about being distinguishable among others, so that you can also better collaborate. You know, it's that's the other misconception there often is, yeah, I don't want to compete. I'm in it for peace and love and unity. Yeah, I think most social enterprises, they have that approach. They want this world to be a better place, but you're still competing for attention. And if you're not competing in a monetary sense, you're still when you are very distinguishable, you still have this huge benefit that others can then collaborate with you because they know what you stand for exactly. Like, it's not just something vague, but if you have perfectly niched down to one specific spot and you are absolutely known for this thing, then it's very easy for you or me or anyone out there to approach you. So branding is also a tool to improve collaboration, with which then in turn will make for that better world. So it's actually the opposite of what people would think. So that's one thing. And then the last thing, the third thing, if you're asking me about the key things to consider, is that you should, and that's much more practical. When you look at branding, you should really take care that the essence of your brand is present in everything you do. And what that means is, let's just take an example of Airbnb. Their brand essence, just to give you an example of what I mean when I say brand essence, is belong anywhere. So whatever they do, whether it's a website, a flyer, host an event, hire a person, press release, no matter what, they should always be able to put it on one side and then on the other side write this two-word sentence, belong anywhere, and then see, okay, does that reflect, is that brand essence reflected in what I'm doing right now? If it's not, I should not do it. So you should always try to be, and another way to look at this essence is it's kind of the purpose, the why that drives everything you do. So if this why is not in what you're about to do, just don't do it. And and your design should reflect that everything, like your verbal identity. There's so many aspects to it, but yeah, that's, I think, the most important thing, to have that one string, that one thing that should go through everything, and then people can feel it. If it's in every written word, every styled communication, every person working for you, if you have like bigger organizations, and it's very important to have all your employees on the same side, like that they know your vision, that they know your essence, and what this is all about, especially with social impact, you know.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think there's so much good stuff in there that you've just shared with us. So thank you. Like, I particularly like that, the first one you were talking about, in terms of, you know, you can choose whether you're in control of your brand or control of some extent of your brand, and kind of intentional about it and strategic about it, because your brand exists whether or not you're thinking about it or doing anything intentional with it.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's everything that people see, hear, reflect, can like feel about who you are and what you're putting out there as a business. So even if you're not putting anything out there, or you're not posting on Facebook or sharing emails or having meetings and stuff, you know, that still influences what people perceive you as a brand.
Definitely.
Because if they haven't heard about you, then there'll be all sorts of, you know, assumptions about your business and your brand. So the more intentional, the more strategy you can create, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a tedious process, but just being, you know, in control of what you're putting out there and thinking it through makes so much sense, because it's happening anyway.
Yep.
Brilliant. So thank you so much for sharing those 3 tips. Tell us about what stage are people usually at with their branding when they come to sort of speak to you?
I got 2 other things that I just have on my list here. One I wanted to share, maybe because the 2 things that people mainly forget when they think about branding, when they start looking at branding for their business. Maybe I share that before I talk about what I do.
Yeah.
And the main thing that they forget is basically their customers. So, and that's a funny one, because I mean, in the end, what you're doing is for your customers. But what I mean by that is that people often fall in love very easily with their invention, their service, their product, their idea, and they think it's brilliant and it's amazing, or their cause in that frame. And there's so much focus on that tiny little geeky thing that they completely lose sight of who they're actually providing a service for. And in most cases, a customer cares about a solution for his problem. It's as simple as that. And then the social benefit or the environmental benefit is often just like a side decision factor, if you want to say so, for them. Whereas for most social or environmental entrepreneurs, that's like the main thing. Okay, I got this thing, and I got this cause that I'm supporting, so I should really put it out there. But for the people you're serving, if you have this toothbrush and it's like this super eco toothbrush, it's still a toothbrush that should clean your teeth, you know. And people are primarily looking for toothbrush, and then secondarily they're looking, okay, so this looks more eco, but the main thing is that they want to clean their teeth. So that's something they often forget, the customer, like putting the customer in the center and really focusing on, okay, what problem am I trying to solve there? And both emotionally and rationally, you know, and functionally. And the other thing is that branding is nothing that you can do now, finish, and it's over, never look at it again. Like branding is a never-ending process. Once you set out and you created your brand strategy, if you want to say so, and you got your plan, and you started making things like a website, different communication channels, then there is a phase which I would call the brand building phase, where you everything you do, you're out there. That's all brand building, and then you actually, it's like a circle. You move back to the strategy phase with all the input, with all the feedback that you got from the market and from everything you did, and you have to do the thing again. So it's actually like a never-ending spiral where you have to constantly refine. Is what I'm doing reflective of my intention, of my purpose? Does it serve my customer in the best interest? What did they say about it? So it's like this constant loop. So it's not something you tick off, okay, branding, done that. It's something much bigger. You always have to keep an eye on that. Yeah, so there you go.
Brilliant. No, thank you. I think that's really, really helpful. Yeah, because absolutely people often get caught up in the moment of their business, or, you know, the product or the service that they're offering, and not really, especially in the early days, kind of just lose sight of the customer. And I think that's such an important message is, you know, if you haven't got your customers, and your customers aren't at the heart of your brand and your business, you don't really have a business, and you're not really providing a service to anybody. Like, you can almost, and I think this is possibly the case with social enterprises more so, is because they're so passionate about the cause or the impact that they're trying to create, that they get caught up in that and forget, actually, if you're running it as a business and you want to have a successful business, you always need to come back to, who am I providing this service for? What do they need to get out of it? What do they need to hear, learn, value?
Yep.
What's going to make a difference to them? Because without those customers, you're not going to be able to build your brand or your business, and grow and deliver the impact that you want to, or achieve the cause that you're working towards. So I think that's really helpful.
And especially in regards to branding, it's a lot about the emotional benefit that people get from it, and you want to really focus on that so that people can connect with you as a brand. Just one example. Do we have time to just make a little case study example?
Yeah, that would be really great.
Because I was just looking at a beautiful social impact business the other day. It's called Fly Zipline. It's a US-based company, and they basically created it's a tech for good business, and they created a drone delivery network system so that people could get access to vaccines and really life-saving medicines when they need to. And it's a California-based company, and they partnered up with the Rwandan government, and they now have a system in place. So they're developing and testing everything in the US, and then they have their system in Rwanda. And they're partnering with the government. So any doctor in any hospital in Rwanda can send a text or a WhatsApp message to them, and within 30 minutes, they get their stuff delivered to them. And they have significantly reduced deaths, basically. Because before, the roads would be tricky, covered in mud, floods, whatever, all types of problems. So stuff would never get there in time, if at all. So that's what they do. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is they managed to transition from a very, let's say, tech-focused thing, where they were completely looking at the technology of their drones and the way that they deliver their things and how amazing the delivery network is, to a branding where they put the emotional relief of those that they're actually finally helping. It's not even the doctors, but the people whose lives they're saving, in the forefront of everything. and that's a dramatic shift. And that's a good example of how you can, how a brand thinking can move you from focusing on your innovation, focusing on what you created, on like the nitty gritty details of your invention, to who you're actually helping and what that does for them. And for them, it's been really successful.
No, it sounds like a fascinating. I'm definitely going to follow up and
Yeah,
read more about
check it
it.
out.
I really remind us what it's called.
Fly Zipline.
Fly
I'm not
Zipline.
sure about the domain. I think it's flyzipline.com. I'm pretty sure, but
Fantastic. No, we'll definitely check that out. And if I can find the link, we'll put that in the
yeah. Unfortunately,
on
the yeah, I can share with you. Unfortunately, on the website, they don't showcase any of their old stuff. So I have that somewhere here, so I can show it to you. But it's really interesting if you see the two side by side. You know, like before they used to have, for example, they used to have blue skies on the background, and now they have like these all dark and cloudy and moody African backgrounds, and then there's the light in that, you know, darkness. And as opposed to before, everything would be, you would see a drone in front of a blue sky, you know. And now you have a dark sky up there, and down there there's this woman kind of suffering, you know. So it's in everything. That's the visual part. In everything there is this shift, really recognizable. Yeah.
Brilliant. Love that as an example. Thank you for
You're
sharing
welcome.
it. Great. So tell us a little bit about what you do, Sascha, specifically with clients with social impact businesses, and what, like I was saying before, like what do people usually come to you with as kind of challenges, questions? Because I can imagine people kind of maybe feel like, oh, we maybe need to do something with our branding, but we're not really sure what branding is, and we're not really sure where to start.
Yeah, so there are two. So there are two types of clients: existing businesses and new ones. So the existing ones usually they want to scale, and they somehow have a feeling that looking at their branding, and they usually have a better understanding of branding because they're there already, and they have a consistent stream of revenue, and so they know that branding is something to look at to improve their revenue. Whereas the other ones, the startups, usually don't have that deep understanding yet of how important branding is. So there's a lot more groundwork to do. But yeah, I mean, both of them have in common that they care about improving their impact and their profit, and that they in some way understand that only by improving it's a lot to do also what you're talking about, that they can only improve their impact by improving their profit, their revenue. This is directly related. So in terms of branding, we then for the existing ones, we take everything apart. So we look at what's their current situation with everything they do internally and externally, and yeah, and then we see how we can arrange that so that it's more authentic, more truthful, because it's a lot about authenticity, this whole branding thing, even though it may sound like creating something artificial, but it's not actually. If you use it in this like tedious, you use that nice word, if you use it in a tedious commercial way, it can be used that way. But the way that I prefer to use it is more of a spiritual way, actually, where you're kind of uncovering the dust from who you are already. You just don't know it, and it's not clearly formulated, you know, as a business. So that's why I like to look at it. So that's kind of the process also. Like I would describe it, so I'm offering it in two ways. One is a workshop way, where I can go somewhere and people can attend a workshop. It's a one-day workshop, and I guide them through. I give them tools so that they can go that route on themselves, on their own. And the other way is like a one-on-one coaching program. It's an 8-week-long program where I go through a lot of tools and templates and exercises with them to basically uncover their identity and rearrange, if not there already. If it's there already, we rearrange everything they do, and we put it in new perspective and see, okay, what do we need to keep doing? What should we stop doing? How can we reframe this whole thing? And then finally, ultimately, also, how can this be implemented? And for the startups, it's a little bit a lighter process, because you don't have to deal with employees usually yet, or you don't have to deal with a public opinion that exists already, so you can really create something from scratch. So it's a little different approach. But yeah, I mean, in general, people come to me who have realized that they need strategic assistance in crafting their brand identity so that it profits so that their business model profits from it. Yeah.
Brilliant. No, I love that. Really, really great. And can you tell us a little bit about how you see the distinction between sort of branding and marketing? Because I imagine
Sure.
they come, very closely, and actually you probably do a lot of stuff. Part of the branding is helping people think through what their marketing communications is going to be like.
Yeah.
And what it, how their brand feeds into that. So
yeah.
Just to finish up.
Yes. Yeah, that's a question I get on a regular basis. And and for me, again, if I had to just explain it in one sentence, I would say branding is defining who you are, and then marketing is telling the people who you are actively, basically.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So marketing without branding doesn't make sense, and branding without marketing is not so how could you say, it's not so efficient, or it's not so fast. Yeah. Then you just rely on word of mouth, basically, if you just had branding, right?
Brilliant.
And marketing is an extension of word to mouth. What else can you do to improve or to go beyond word of mouth? That's basically marketing.
Yeah. Brilliant. No, I love that. Thank you very much for a very simple explanation.
Yeah.
So Sascha, it's been brilliant speaking to you. Tell us a little bit about how people can get in touch with you, what your website is, or how they can find you. Sure. And get in touch if they're interested in learning more about you and the brand and how to get
Absolutely. So anyone who's interested can just message me on Facebook. So the easiest way would be to just type in my name on Facebook and see Sascha Rossaint. I think it's Sascha Rossaint Consulting. Or you go to my website, which maybe we can put down in the comments down there. It's sascharosaint.com, and there is a little link where you can schedule a meeting, and we can just meet on whatever suits you, Facebook, Skype, Zoom, we got it all. And we can just have a chat and see if there's anything I can do for you. And if there is, I'm happy to do it.
Brilliant. And Sascha's in the Impact Entrepreneurs Club as well.
Yep.
So you may well be able to connect directly with him through that, or through this live. You'll be able to follow him and connect with him. So please do that if you're looking for support with branding. And thanks so much for your time, Sascha. It's been brilliant to kind of get your expertise, hear your thoughts on what branding is, and some really great tips that I'm sure people will take away and think about how they can implement that in their social impact business. So thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
No, you're welcome. I'll speak to you soon.
Okay. Do I have to close this? How does that work? No, we end with the same question.
I'll finish and then you should. Yeah, no, I'll finish and you probably should. It'll just close up.
Okay.
But good question. Thanks
bye bye.
Bye bye.